Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions, and thank you again so much for our time together. Well, we've got Revival Night starting out at East Campus tonight. We look forward to seeing you there at 7 o'clock sharp. We start the services right on time, and we'll be done by 8:30 in Revival Nights because we know that you have work the next day. I'll see you there tonight. But right now, let me take you back to the book of Luke, chapter 1. I want to talk to you about our destiny for just a moment. All last weekend, I preached to you how God has determined, put the borders on the season for our life. There was a time for us to be born, and there's a time for us to die. We have a purpose in this world, and you and I are not born by accident. We came to this world. God chose where we were to be born. God chose the time, the epoch for us to be born in. Now, with that in mind, I want to take you back to just a couple of thoughts from John the Baptist and Jesus. In Luke chapter 1, verse 66, about John the Baptist it said, "For everyone who heard this wondered about it, asking, 'What then is this child going to be?' For the Lord's hand was with him." People can see God's hand upon your life. People can see that God has His hand upon your life. It's one of the strangest things, but when you see a person that God's hand is upon and God is with them in an unusual way, you can recognize this about your life. And there are people who will see this about your life. But even when God's hand is upon you, too often young people make one of the greatest mistakes of their life when they try to launch themselves too quickly, or they listen to other people around them telling them about how to develop themselves and how to develop their career. And they forget that both Jesus and John the Baptist, God's hand was on them, but they were developed in obscurity. Let me say that again. They were developed in obscurity. In Luke chapter 1, verse 80, talking about John the Baptist, "And the child grew and became strong in spirit, and he lived in the desert until he appeared publicly to Israel." He developed in obscurity. Now take it over to chapter 2, verse 39 and 40. Chapter 2, verse 39 and 40. "When Joseph and Mary had done everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee to their own town of Nazareth." Little village, about 50 to 100 people. "And the child grew and became strong, and he was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him." Again, he developed in obscurity. You see, when God wants to develop your life, He doesn't put you on the front line of battle. God is not a user. God does not look on us as acceptable losses. God does not put us into a place where we don't have the strength to stand. God develops us in obscurity. And we have to be very willing to just be obscure. We have to be very willing to be unnoticed. We know God's hand is upon us, but we have to allow God to develop us in obscurity, because then when the time comes for God to launch us, then we can see all the work of God done.